Remember that time your high school teacher was talking to you about World War II and they explained to you about this guy who was stuck out in the wilderness for like 30 years after the war ended and refused to give up? He literally sat out in the wilderness and no one could find him. No, not Bigfoot, this guy, Hiroo Onoda. All right, give me a minute to explain. Cue the intro. All right, some quick background information on Hiroo Onoda. He was born March 19th, 1922 in the Empire of Japan, and he died January 16th, 2014. He served as a second lieutenant in the Imperial Japanese Army, which means at the time of Japan's surrender in 1945, he was only the age of 23. So that begs the question, why did he wait till he was almost 52 years of age to surrender? The answer to that question is very complex. Let's take a quick look. All right, let's begin with belief systems. Upwards of 80% of Japan's population practice Confucianism or Shintoism. In these belief systems, huge emphasis was placed on purity, reverence to nature, ancestor worship, harmony with nature, and the idea that the souls of the dead could actually impact the living. So stop and think about that for a second. If you thought that your task was so virtuous, so correct, and so at harmony with nature, and that your dead grandfather perhaps was looking down upon you, or your long bloodline ancestry was literally looking down at your actions and saying, is this person doing the correct thing? You would, of course, make sure that you're paying respect and reverence to them. So the idea of surrender in battle or showing cowardice is completely off the table. You would be dishonoring your family name and all the ancestors who came before you.
Brother,
This is where the idea of death before dishonor is completely woven into Japanese culture, such to the fact that many Japanese during World War II would actually commit the act of, as it's known in Japan, seppuku, which is the disembowelment, aka the suicide of the individual because they felt like their honor had been compromised, and the only way to purify their soul and pay reverence to their family name was to literally commit suicide. In addition, Japan was exploitative with previous culture. The Japanese political structure saw value in the idea that they were going to imbue their people with the samurai values. These values were a romantic look at the past, where samurai were seen as beautiful poets, calligraphists, Confucian scholars, as well as master swordsmen. In general, the idea would be that these are Renaissance men of their time. And under those guidelines, strict adherence to the ruling authority, as well as not denigrating your family name, were among the highest values a Japanese citizen could uphold. The interesting thing is Japan was not the only country doing this. Germany and Italy were doing this as well. Germany was referencing its past of the Holy Roman Empire, as well as Italy referencing its past of the Roman Empire to say that they needed to return to greatness. And ironically, these three countries, Germany, Italy, and Japan, form the Axis powers leading into World War II. So yeah, Japan is absolutely using propaganda to brainwash its populace right before World War II. So speaking of propaganda, I mean education system, let's look at Japan's education system leading up into World War II. Japanese students were expected to hold a high amount of respect to the authority class, as well as practiced military doctrines and procedures that could help ultimately win them the war in the future. They would also spread lies and misinformation about potential enemies. This propaganda would permeate through Japanese society. A good example of this would be Evil Mickey, who is the embodiment of American imperialism bent on the destruction of Japan. Now, getting back to Hiroo Onoda, even his own mother handed him a dagger with the family name inscripted in it and explicit instructions to commit suicide before he surrenders.
You didn't think I was rolling out of your naked, did you? 15, dude, this is take that hill.
Now, I don't know about you, but that seems pretty radical. Let's check with the judges.
Got him!
Yeah, all the judges agree. This is crazy. However, this is the prevailing attitude for imperialist Japan at the time. Okay, quick disclaimer. Somebody's going to jump all over me in the comments section saying I have a Eurocentric vision on how this history is being told. Of course I do. We live in America, and in America, we value the individual over the collective. Leading into World War II in Japan, not the case. Okay, let's fast forward to August 1945. America drops 2 atomic bombs, Little Boy and Fat Man, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan is forced to surrender. However, we know that Hiroo Onoda did not surrender. He took up the resistance for an extra 30 years. He actually held out for 28 years, 6 months, and 8 days, but who's counting? He literally thought that everything was one big lie.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Yeah, they were dropping leaflets, pamphlets, and newspapers, and he was literally just going, "No, that's fake news."
It's not over until I win.
Okay, so what was he doing out there for 30 years, and how was he surviving? His mission was to, quote, conduct espionage and surveillance against the enemy, and he allegedly killed 30 Filipino civilians. Okay, so what did he eat? For 30 years, he foraged for things like fruit and berries, as well as, quote, borrowing rice and meat from the locals. And by borrowing, I mean thugging them out and stealing their stuff. Just like Debo and Friday. Meanwhile, you're complaining that chicken nuggets at school are trash. Okay, let's fast forward to February 20th, 1974. A student by the name of Norio Suzuki went to the island of Lubang in the Philippines to, quote, find Lieutenant Onoda, a panda, and the abominable snowman, close quote, in that order. Wait, I said we weren't talking about Bigfoot. Now I gotta change the intro. Suzuki found him, yet Onoda refused to surrender unless his commanding officer was brought to him to give him his surrender orders. So that's exactly what Japan's government did. They literally dragged Onoda's commanding officer out of retirement, flew him to Lubang, Philippines, so that he can get Onoda to surrender. Along with surrendering, Onoda had a fully functioning rifle, 500 rounds of ammunition, multiple grenades, and the dagger his mother gave to him. Onoda returned home, he would receive a hero's welcome from the Japanese people, as well as go on to write a book called No Surrender, My 30-Year War. So what's the takeaway? On one hand, you can appreciate a man who remained doggedly committed to a cause that even his own fanatical government was forced to abandon. Yet on the other hand, you could see how deep the propaganda can go that Control-Alt-Delete can't even exit you from the program. So where does Hiroo Onoda lie on that spectrum for you? Weigh in the comment sections below and I'll give you a shout out in the next video. Thanks for watching Historical Side Notes, and I'll see you between the pages.